Hey guys, welcome to Foxology Radio.
Voxology Radio?
Yep.
Well, this is the podcast.
Oh, Foxology Podcast.
Yeah, but we're going to do another radio.
Yeah.
Now, Seth, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you were going to do the Sethology Radio.
Yes.
I don't know why I had trouble saying that. Sethology Radio. What songs would you pick to talk about?
Get Up, Fight.
Get Up and Fight by Muse. Yep, you love that one. What else?
Debit.
Which one?
I Am Man.
Oh, Muppet, yes. I'm a Man or Am I a Muppet? Loves that one. Loves that one. What other songs would you talk about?
High School Musical.
High School Musical. You don't listen a lot to that. Right now, we've been in the middle of a Quiet Riot. Whoa!
Quiet Riot?
Quiet Riot. Come on, feel the noise. He loves that song. Living Color.
Feel the noise.
That's it. Living Color. Cult of Personality.
That's a good one.
And Break My Heart.
Yeah, and Teo Cruz, maybe, with Ludacris.
I will, Chris.
Yes, Break My Heart from the early zeros, I think. Right, so it's quite a spectrum.
That is, yeah, it's very well-rounded.
So if we did a Sethology Radio, that's kind of the vibe you're gonna get.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, we don't talk about Bruno's up there.
Yeah.
Toto Africa, Weezer's version he likes. Anything else, buddy?
Yeah.
We have a Seth playlist. Yes.
Here
What
he
else?
goes.
What?
Oh, here he goes. Hey, Tim.
What?
Hey, Tim. Hey, someone, please. I have the stuff. Someone, please.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Seth on summer vacation is Seth turned up to 11. Let's just say that right now. How are you today, Mr. Stafford?
I'm doing well. How are you, Mr. Michael?
You know what? We're doing great. It has been and this is what, I grew up in the Midwest, so we talk about the weather.
Yes.
That's just what we do. It's like, so it's been hot.
Yes.
And I mean, like 90s.
Yeah, here too.
And here there's a little humidity
There's a little bit of
attached to that.
And so it's humility.
Yes, all of us. It gets a little juicy out there, but we're doing great, my friend. We're doing great. Big Nate comes home today to visit for a long weekend, so we're pumped on that. And
what are you guys gonna do? What's your plans?
Well, Kenobi.
Oh yeah,
that's plan number one. Usually there's some working out. He drags me to the gym, and we do things like push weights and such. And there's usually some dining out.
Yeah.
I think he just likes being home.
Yeah.
Like you know that feeling when
like
you're in
comfort.
college.
Yeah. For sure.
Exactly. Just having it easy. So anyway, that will be fun. But other than that, dude, we have a lot. We have a lot going on.
Always.
Oh, and we have more shootings. I mean, I pulled up. Let me try to find it. I pulled up just a news site, one of those mobile news sites, and here were the headlines, and it's just absolutely insane. One was about the failure of the police in Texas. Then we had 2 dead plus suspected shooter outside of an Iowa church.
Yes.
Then we had the Tulsa shooting in a hospital.
Yeah.
And then the Buffalo mass shooting suspect pleads not guilty to 25 count indictment, including murder. So those were the 5 stories at the top.
Yeah, that's all since the Texas shooting was Tuesday of last week.
Yep, it's just absolutely insane. I mean, It's insane. Then Timothy sent me this interview with the woman who was handcuffed trying to get in and rescue her kids.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you try to figure out, because I don't want to sensationalize anything, especially things that are this important or this affecting to our community.
Significant,
so,
yes.
Yeah, when you hear things like the cops were putting the parents in handcuffs and they weren't, it's like, well, is that all true or are people... But the interview that I sent you was with the mother who was handcuffed because she was questioning why they weren't going in, and because she wanted to get in there, and she got out of the cuffs, and then she's the one that ran over, jumped the fence went in, and you can watch her interview of her talking about getting her first kid and his entire class out, and then going for her second child and hearing the gunshots the whole time that everybody could hear, so they knew that that shooter was being active, was actively shooting, and made it to her other son's classroom, but the teacher was too afraid to open the door. But she eventually got both her kids out. And so she's wrestling with, like, first she was like telling the cops, give me a vest, let me go in. I don't, like, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to go in regardless. And then, you know, and then she's wrestling with the guilt and shame of the kids that were still killed in the shooting. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know. It's just, the weight of all of it is tremendous.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So we just sit in more grief, and even at our church on Sunday, we just took time.
Yeah.
But, you know, 2 weeks after Buffalo, we did it after Buffalo. We did it again. It's like you can do this every single week, and it's unbelievable. We have loads of emails coming in and comments from our last couple of episodes. I want to hit one really quick before we get to the more recent ones. There was one that came in about the idea of grace when we were going through the different words. And it said, I have a peripheral question about the idea of grace. Often in our Western context, I hear and have said that we need to show grace to ourselves. I've even said to my children when they mess something up and start getting upset, hey, you're only human, have some grace for yourself. Is that a correct way of using the word grace? What's a better way of expressing this idea? Not to beat yourself up for making a mistake. If I'm trying to reframe my understanding of this concept in terms of patron/client relationships, it doesn't seem like the correct way to use the word grace. And totally, I would agree, dear questioner. Grace is relational. And so I would use the word acceptance for the posture we're to have about ourselves. That I am accepting my limitations. I'm accepting the fact that that I have a will that's often bent towards not what is right, but rather what is the worst kind of thing for me. But I wouldn't use the word grace there anymore, just because I think grace is a relational concept that requires two people. So, and again, I mean, the quibbling doesn't matter. If you want to use the word grace for what you do when you pray, or for the kindness you show yourself. But I would say acceptance would be the word I would use there. What about you, Timothy John?
I don't know. We were just talking about that with something that had to do, in the last episode when I was talking about my son asking, when we were talking about the love your neighbor verse. Yes. And he asked me about, what if you don't love yourself? And there is something to this idea. I think, we've had a couple episodes with mental health folks on. It'd be great to do another one to just kind of talk. There is something, I agree. I don't know if grace is the right word for that, but there is something about our relationship with ourselves and how we care for ourselves that is often missed in the church and is often kind of demonized in the church. But so many people are struggling with depression, different things like that. So there is that idea of having grace with yourself, but whatever that really means to how you take care of yourself, it'd be fun to look at that verse for both sides of that, like the love your neighbor as yourself, both your neighbor and yourself, and what that means to love and care for and dignify yourself and your neighbor. I think is an interesting concept to explore. Yeah.
And so are you.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to love myself every day.
Well, you already do.
Do I?
Well, yeah, because love in the Bible isn't a feeling word; it's an action word.
Yeah, so even parsing out language like that, I think, is helpful to.
Yeah, so like you're drinking out of a blue flask, which who knows what could be in that flask, ladies and gentlemen. We have no outside testimony.
Social anxiety only has so many antidotes.
So, you poor guy. So, so I would say, so when you're thirsty, you get something to drink, right? We talked about this before. When you're tired, you sleep. When you're exposed, you find shelter. So that's how you love yourself biblically, right? And so how do you love others? Well, you use the same ingenuity, resources, and time and attention to doing what you do naturally for you to other people.
Well, how deep does that thread go, though, when you start pulling on it? Those are all physical needs that a lot of which you do subconsciously, right? Like if I'm thirsty, I often don't have to think about picking up water to drink it. It's your natural.
Well, but you put it in the flask.
Right, but I'm saying, like, if you fall that further down into emotional things that are less like in front of you, that you struggle with about yourself, ways of taking care of yourself that extend past physical necessities or whatever, that turn into emotional necessities, or even emotional abuse that you inflict upon yourself. How I think it's interesting to explore that as we talk a lot about the Imago Dei as how we treat other people, but we don't talk about it a ton with how we take care of ourselves.
I get that.
All at the top of my head. I'm just spitballing off of this one little phrase of grace.
Yeah. Spitball away, my friend.
Spitballs.
I am resistant to turning love into an internal state,
right,
that serves a therapeutic purpose. And I'm more interested in externalizing that, because so much of our faith, at least the inherited faith, is about my internal states and how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem is we've really missed the what's in front of my face part.
Well, then it might be interesting to compartmentalize that, and I mean that in a positive way, to explore mental health through, if it's not that, then, if not this.
Well, I'm not saying it isn't that, but when I think about it as only that.
Right. Oh, totally. Yeah.
And that's that.
Right.
Seems like that's the issue.
Yeah.
So anyway, before we dive into all the questions you've got ready for us, I want to thank 4 people who have come on the community, have come into the community and are supporters of it. I don't know how to pronounce Pushpa. I hope it's Pushpa, which I love. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to go with Pushpa, Matt, Chris, and Amanda. And I just want to say thank you for giving through Tithely. If you go to tithely.com and type in Vox Collective.
Or it's tithe.ly.
Yeah, tithe.ly. That's right. And that's how you can do regular giving there. You can do Patreon. But, man, we're always just super grateful for people who are generous, because that allows us to do things that we wouldn't normally be able to do. Now, Timothy, before we get to an interview, we've got an interview today with our good friend Timothy John Donald Gombis. And we're wrapping up our series of conversations about image. So we've been talking about saved, we've been talking about faith and grace, and now we're going to talk about works. And Gombis has done so much academic work in Ephesians, and around Paul, that he has a really interesting take on Paul's use of good deeds versus Paul's use of works of the law in other places and so on. So it's a shorter interview, but I think it'll be really helpful for those of us who are still trying to reconcile how the new grammar of the new creation gospel sort of works itself out. So this will be our last entry into the series. But before we do that, because it's a little bit of a shorter interview, is my voice cracking? It feels like it's cracking.
Well, it happens to all of us.
Yes. Puberty is so nice.
Sometimes it lasts for 30 years.
Sometimes it does. And I think,
years.
Especially with men, emotional puberty.
That's right.
It's kind of where we're at. Yes. So you've got some stuff for us, Timothy. Go ahead. Launch the torpedoes.
All right. We have tons and tons and tons of emails and questions. This first one's a very short one, but I think it could provoke something interesting. Hey, Mike and Tim, you mentioned recently about solid believers who hold political office. the way I've read the Gospels, Jesus actively rejected all earthly power when it was offered to him. Example, John 6:15. It would appear that using political power, even if it seems to advance God's kingdom, is a rejection of Christ's example.
Ooh.
I'd love to hear your thoughts or pushback.
Ooh. Well, go for it.
Well, I like this one because I've actually been wrestling with this quite a bit, with how do we, it's the thoughts and prayers argument, right? So,
right.
How actively involved do you get, and how active are things like thoughts and prayers? So thoughts and prayers have become a negative rhetorical device with half of the Christian community I think for just reasons, but thoughts and prayers as intrinsically as what they are not necessarily bad. It's just the way that we've used that phrase.
Right. We've used that phrase to excuse non-action.
Yes. Like we'll think happy thoughts and we'll just say a prayer.
That's
and we
right.
can move forward with our lives.
I do think prayer does stuff.
Yeah. And
by the way,
I do too, but I'm not sure what it does. Other than
right.
like provoking what I said last week before we did the prayers of the people, like posturing yourself so that you're actually facing towards what God, the kingdom, is doing, and thinking about that and praying about that and involving yourself in that will provoke you to action, I think. So there's an active element of prayer that I feel like I understand. There's a supernatural element of prayer that I do not understand. But that doesn't mean I don't believe in it. I just don't know what place it has. But I saw something float through the news that I thought was interesting in regards to this, and it was about the kid that brought the gun into the supermarket in Buffalo. Right, that was in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And he made it very clear that he hates African-American people, and there's also some language about woke culture or whatever woke culture is. Mm-hmm. And then the person who was talking about this linked it up to this guy named Spencer Bone, who runs this thing called Liberty Alliance. And if you go on their website, it's an organization that was founded to fight for, well, their tagline literally says, Liberty Alliance exists to fight for conservative values whenever they're under attack. Wherever they're under attack. And on the website, they made a map of woke hotspots or places where things are happening that you can avoid or whatever because it's woke culture. And there's a submission form where you can submit places where things are happening. And a lot of the places that were pinned on the map were schools. And then there's rhetoric about how to fight back, a call to fight back against things. And same article had a thing with a guy that's running for governor in Alabama, and his politicians have their ads that they run on TV,
Yep.
And he was calling out like trans culture and in particular a trans school that was being put into place, and he was using fight back rhetoric as well, naming a school. Now we have a problem in this country with people inflicting violence at schools, and many of the shooters have been young and white and are pushing back against things that they have read or seen. And the point of all this is that I think that this rhetoric is really damaging and poisonous and dangerous, and it does cause people to do things that are causing death. Like human lives are being ended because of subscribing or getting riled up by specific rhetoric. Right. So when I think about this question from the listener about believers in office or whatever, I'm thinking about it a little bit more broadly, I think, than he's asking it. Whether like just that we should have Christians in office so that they can enact Christian morals or beliefs. I don't think that that's right at all. Right. But how we as individuals become more involved in our communities, because there are crazy, dangerous, life-ending things happening, and there is dangerous rhetoric that can spur that on. That's what I want to explore. Yeah. So those are my thoughts. They're not answers. They're just like, this is why I'm wrestling with this topic so much, about how we can be more involved it's the same thing with the missions conversation to a certain extent, where it's like, I think we've established that we don't think missions are wrong. It's just there are certain ways of going about it. So there are ways that we can, as a community, can be more intentional with how we approach living amongst other people. And but that starts here. For me, it starts in Auburn. How do we do that, and should we be doing that? And it seems like there is a need for us to be more involved in our immediate communities. What do you think?
Right. Well, first of all, great job. I would echo some of that. I would say it depends what we mean by political office. So I distinguish between being political and being partisan. Because the church, as we've said lots, is a political entity, right?
Yeah,
There's no getting around that. Any organization around or under some authority for the common good, that is political.
Yeah.
So we're already part of politics. I mean, the church is a politic, and we are political. So do I have any issue with Christians like being elders of churches or leaders of churches? No, but those can be seen as political offices.
Totally.
So if by political office, and I think this is what our listener is perhaps getting at, if political office means I'm fighting for partisan values in a way that causes me to cease being Christian in the way that I treat my enemies, then absolutely we are abandoning the example of Jesus and actually enacting the opposite of the example of Jesus when we do that.
Yeah.
If I am part of a team or community that is working so that all people would flourish, and I happen to hold a political office in order to do that, I don't think that Scripture would have any issue with that, in the same way that Scripture wouldn't have issue with a political office in the church. So it goes back to motive, how we understand, is this a culture war? So I can assume political office is a culture warrior, or I can assume political office is a disciple who is a cruciform in nature and working for the common good, certainly having an agenda. Yes, of course we have agendas. Yes. But are the agendas for the blessing and betterment of all according to Christ, or are the agendas really about advancing a partisan agenda? And is there confusion between the two, that I think the partisan agenda actually represents the kingdom of Christ? That's when I'm off the bus entirely.
Yeah.
So I want to agree with you to say, I don't think it is the posture of the church to look at the world and seek to transform it. I think the examples we get in the language that's used is passive. So we're to be witnesses. Jesus' disciples were to be salt and light, which were not evangelistic metaphors; they were identity metaphors. So I don't see this commission in the New Testament to go out and to change culture.
Right.
I see the attention, the direct attention of all of the New Testament imperatives are focused at the church. And not just the church, but me as a disciple of Jesus in the church.
Yeah.
So if the orientation of my life is spent trying to change the world, but I ignore what God's doing in my life and in his community,
right,
then I think we've got that backwards.
Yeah, it really makes a conundrum to a certain, well, in some ways. Like if you think if it really is just go down from here and make disciples or whatever, if we're not meant to try these grandiose superhero kind of attempts, like I'm going to become the president because the president has the most power to affect change upon everybody, but more like you just said, me, mine, here. If all Christians are doing that, loving their community, being held accountable, or being vulnerable and transparent in their community, what that does to every community around, is it just like it's all the wizards and Doctor Strange throwing up their shields, not just Doctor Strange.
I don't know.
That was in Avengers, not in the new one.
Okay, don't ruin it.
I won't. All right. I think that's an interesting thing to wrestle with, though.
Yep, great question.
All right, so this one, now I'm just picking them randomly because
we gotta pick up the pace, though.
Well, this one's long. The question's long.
Oh, okay.
I'll read it quickly, but I think it has some fun things to play around with.
Great, dude. Great.
Seth and Company. let's start with the important stuff. Seth, buddy, thank you, buddy. Every time I hear your voice in my car and my headphones, I smile. I feel joy from God through you, and I love it. Thank you. I love you. Now,
oh, that's so sweet.
Mike and Tim.
Perfect. That is the correct order.
Where to begin?
Yeah.
I've written an email to you many times in my head. Let's start with where we are currently. My family and I didn't have a church to go to this last Easter. This was strange. We have never been here before. My wife and I were married when we were youth pastors, or at least I was the pastor because I was a male. When we were involved in quote-unquote ministry ever since, and not always paid, but small group leaders, etc. I was shocked at what was revealed in the church by the pandemic and the social unrest in our country. My oldest daughter was home from college with her liberal ideas. She was sharing with those ideas, and she was sharing those ideas with her younger siblings. I had to stand up against her, right? We would find ourselves in yelling matches often. I can vividly recall a moment I was defending the need for law and order to stop looters from removing Nike products from stores, ignoring the fact my daughters were standing up for George Floyd, a man created in the image of God. My arguments rang out in my head, and they sounded so void and empty of love, empathy, compassion, or truth. I began with the simple thought, I don't know everything. I am embarrassed that this was so revolutionary for me, but since I didn't know everything, I could stand to learn from someone else, even my liberal daughter, who, by the way, is finishing her master's after only 5 years since graduating high school. Yeah, I could learn from her. I began to seek... he's got some fun language there.
I love this.
I began to seek out other voices different than my own, trying to imagine a perspective not my own. I began to notice some things being said in my church I no longer could support. One example, life isn't fair. God made some people rich and some people poor. What the heck? I sat through a Sunday sermon where our pastor called out Simone Biles as not being so tough and perpetuating the biggest threat to Christianity, concern for mental health.
Oh, boy.
And that was when she sat out at the Olympics.
The Olympics. Good Lord.
Let's see. A different sermon poking fun at the idea of people needing to see a Marvel hero that looks like them in response to Black Panther, breaking the color barrier. We are a white church in a nice neighborhood. Our pastor discouraged us from being socially active. I couldn't do it anymore.
You didn't even have to say it's a white church. We knew exactly.
I came across Voxology recommended by my oldest daughter. Damn liberal ideas. I read Beth Allison Barr, The Making of Biblical Womanhood. As I read it, I was reminded not only do I not know everything, some of the stuff I know is BS. Why did I think you had to have a penis to teach the Bible? I found myself here without anyone to talk to. Your podcast helped by putting words to my thoughts, and I know I wasn't alone, but my wife wasn't in this place. In fact, she thought I needed to talk to our sons about being a man so they wouldn't end up gay. We have 4 kids. My friends are at churches where Sundays become Trump rallies and teach if you wear a mask, you're living in fear, but you should carry a gun to protect yourself because Jesus told his disciples to carry a sword. I was going crazy. My theology was falling apart. My political affiliation, which I inherited from my mom working at Focus on the Family, was now disgusting to me. All I did was take their voter's guide to the poll and do my Christian duty. The truth or importance of every foundation or theological rock I had was now in question. I remember a ministry book encouraging me to imagine my youth ministry as a fish tank. I had to put the big important things in first, big rocks, then sand or whatever, because it filled. Because if I filled it with sand, I wouldn't be able to put a rock into it later. So what were the big rocks? Sound theology, ability to defend my faith to an unbeliever, admit you're a sinner, and get baptized. I read all of Josh McDowell's books and was ready to argue anyone into belief. If I couldn't, you weren't smart enough or the devil had your mind. I never entered into a conversation with any desire to listen to anyone. When I was 25, I knew so much more about how to do church, be a Christian, be a man. Thanks to Voxology, I now question everything, including what was you two singing about. Thanks, Tim and Tim, the Wanderer episodes. I am wandering. It is so liberating to be able to open Scripture and be okay not understanding what Paul is saying or hearing it for the first time. It is also very uncomfortable and scary. Looking for a community sucks, as you mentioned. How do I bind them into being unbounded? He's in the Rancho Cucamonga area, looking if there's other people in that area that are like-minded. I love you guys, even though you have ripped the rug from under me. And between you two and Tim Gombis, I want to recommend a book or 3 every week. I can't keep up. I have to listen to these podcasts 2 to 3 times because it is so opposite of what and how I used to think. Thank you, thank you, thank you. obviously there's not a direct question there, but I thought it was encouraging, especially for men as we get older. We have such a hard time saying, I don't know. Or as they say, I thought I knew everything. Now I'm realizing that I don't know much of anything. But what a wonderful place to be at, to learn, to grow, to change. There is so much more to learn. And I think that is just the core root of being a disciple, is just being willing to learn. Mm-hmm. And I learned so much from my 10 and 6-year-old. I can't imagine them as teenagers or
my goodness,
college students. And I love that. So if anything, just want to read it as an encouragement to the guy that wrote it in.
Absolutely. And I think you are onto something when you talk about one of the primary identities we have are disciples. And there is such a danger, and of me too. I mean, my goodness, it happens everywhere to everyone, of just sort of cementing in a place or a way of relating or looking at God and the world and the Bible and whatever, and then defending that. And there's a sense in which that's needed. There are parts that are absolutely critical to what it is to be a Christian as opposed to something else. But not as many probably as we've been taught. And that posture of humility that says, I always have something to learn. Oh man, what a neglected spiritual discipline that is. So,
and the fact that he says that it's so that he feels so, he's wandering and it feels so free. It's uncomfortable and scary at times.
It is,
especially when you have multi-decades of confined
to
one way of thinking. Yeah, but
absolutely,
man, it can feel like a breath of fresh air, like you've been locked in a really hot car for a long time.
Ooh, nice. Yes, unless you're in the Mojave Desert and then it's still hot outside.
That's right.
But yes, I just think the goal of this enterprise isn't to disorient people to the place where they just kind of wander away. The goal of the enterprise is the box that we have is too small.
Yes, to take them out of the gift shop.
Yeah, we've been in the gift shop the whole time. The whole national park is there for us to explore. That's what I feel like God has done to us, and that's what we're trying to do in this whole enterprise.
Yeah. Totes.
All right. So, man, great stuff. I don't think we have time for more. There are just so many. Maybe we should probably do a midweeker.
Yeah.
Just to get through.
People ask these really huge questions,
and I love it. But it's how do you answer on email? Like, it would take me a whole day to compose, a 2-page email in response. And so let's do a midweeker here. Let's find somebody to join us, and let's do a midweeker to knock some of these out. But today, brothers and sisters, and I know for some of you this is bad news. For many of you it is good news, but it's more Gombis. we hear from you. But this, I am so glad, because I had something prepared on this, but I had not heard his view around Ephesians 2:10, because there Paul uses the word good deeds as opposed to the word works, and Gombis has thoughts on that I'd not read in the literature before, and so I thought that was helpful.
Yeah.
Anywho, the goal has been to just remind us of how big the national park is.
That's right.
So when we talk about saved or grace or faith or whatever, the world turns out to be a lot bigger than we thought. So here's Tim. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Voxology podcast. And boy, do we have a treat for you today. He is probably not on his porch anymore. He is potentially watching golf if there is golf on, or baseball if there is baseball on. But he's
PGA Championship this week.
He's certainly, we know for sure, being harassed by his twin cats. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. Timothy Gombis back 2 episodes in a row. We figure there is a law of thermodynamics that simply says the more Gombis, the better. And we
that
affirm
may be
that.
the law of diminishing returns. I'm not sure which. We'll see.
Well, the one law that I really subscribe to is the more you run over a dead cat, the flatter it gets. That was one of our my parents.
These are the practical ones, not just the useless theoretical ones.
Yeah, all things. Listen. I speak from experience here, but just to get it out. All things being equal, fat people use more soap. And I'm just saying, I think that's probably true. I think there is a surface area dimension.
I can't argue with that.
To soap use that isn't always accounted for by soap manufacturers.
Yeah. See, this is how my mind works. I believe that. Or do I? I'm not sure.
Ooh.
I think it depends on the plushness of the washcloth.
Ooh,
because some washcloths
that's fair.
Hold the suds
better
for longer.
Far better.
There's this one washcloth that I like to use, and it's not. I couldn't find it for a while.
See, my brain did similar, but went through the amount of soap that some people use. They over lather. Mm-hmm. So it's not about the surface space, it's about how much soap they use. And then my brain took me to an episode of Friends where Joey and Chandler were arguing about using a washcloth or loofah because a soap is self-cleansing. A bar of soap is self-cleansing. So Joey only used the bar of soap, and they were saying that's gross, and he says it's self-cleansing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I believe
funny.
that.
So it was a
I totally believe that.
Full chain
Yeah,
there.
because you have to wash the washcloth.
Yeah.
But you don't have to
washcloths
wash
are not
the soap.
self-cleansing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally buy that. A friend of mine once upbraided me for not using a washcloth, and that's why I was like, you don't have to wash soap. Soap doesn't get dirty.
Right.
Anyway.
So why did you shift? Was it just
Shame.
age? Shame? Okay. That's fair.
You got bath shamed.
No, okay. Do you know why? All right. So we're getting into.
I love it. Yes, please.
Granular detail here. Here's the reason. I formerly used dial bars of soap.
Yeah.
Now, because I'm here in Michigan, and in Michigan, the weather in February, by the end of the winter, it's all designed for you not to have skin left, for your skin to be so dried out. It's painful. So I switched to one of those bath.
Oh boy.
It's like, what's it? Liquid soap, or it's
like a gel?
body wash.
Body wash.
Switch to a body wash, and you need a washcloth for the body wash.
I
was looking for that moisture instead of dial just drying me out and making my skin crack. So washcloth city from now on.
Okay. All right. But the washcloth, as we've established, is not self-cleansing. So
that's right. You got to have a rhythm.
Yes, you do have to have
washing
a rhythm.
that baby.
Yeah, and I find whether it's a washcloth or a towel, there's a certain ratio of I don't like my towels too soft. I need there to be a little texture to them, like a little, and same with my washcloths. I don't want a nice soft washcloth. I want a little agitating. I want agitating.
Slightly abrasive.
Yeah, slightly abrasive.
Yeah. Increases the cleansing power.
It increases the cleansing power.
Like 20%.
At least 20%. 5 out of 6 doctors recommend
I believe that.
cleansing power.
That's right.
Oh, well, Mr. Gombis, it is wonderful to see you.
Are you sure you want to say that after all that we just said?
Yes, Mr. I will resort back to the formality of address now that we've talked about our shower habits. We are ending a conversation, my friend, that we just think you would be the best person to end with. We've been looking at Ephesians 2, 8 through 10, and we've been looking at the words, some of the big Christian words, faith, saved, grace, and works. And the point we've been making has been, if you tell the truncated forgiveness of sins, go to heaven story, then those 4 words mean really different things than if you're telling the kingdom of God, new creation story that we think more faithfully represents the New Testament. And then saved, grace, faith, those take on radically different meanings. And so we've been exploring a couple episodes ago, we explored the idea that grace, in the words of John Barclay, is something that's incongruous, which is there's a big mismatch between the worth and beauty and glory of the giver and the recipient. And but it also is circular in the sense that there is an expectation of not a return in kind, but at least reciprocity. And that whole conversation raises the question, then what's this big boogeyman of works that Paul is always afraid of? Where even in Ephesians, he says it's by grace, not by works, that no one can boast. Does that just mean, is that works there? Is that different from the good deeds he mentions in verse 10 when he says, you've been saved for good deeds. You are God's workmanship, saved in Christ to do good works, which God planned in advance for us to do. Is he using works two different ways there? And we thought of no one better, of course, than you, and your incredible work on Romans, that the terrific series of episodes that you did going through Romans to kind of address this. So why don't we just start there? When Paul uses the word works or good deeds or whatever, is he using the same word all over the place, or are there different nuances to what he intends to convey?
Yeah, those are the right questions. First of all, let me just say a plug for a friend who's got a book coming out that gets right at what you were just sort of talking about. Nijay Gupta is a great New Testament scholar and a super guy. I just saw an advanced version of the book that he's got coming out maybe next spring. It's a look at sort of the New Testament theology. It's not like a theological textbook. It's a really practical, down to earth, great writing. He selects 15 words to kind of get into the New Testament, and they're just like you said: grace, salvation, faith, hope. I mean, so he takes each of these words. That's so cool. Draws the New Testament or Old Testament background, and then selects one New Testament document to sort of draw out what that means. Keep your eye out for that. It's read it a couple weeks ago. It's fantastic. So
do you feel like he stole that idea from us? I mean, is that what I hear you saying?
You're in the introduction. Yeah, it's attributed.
Hey, that is a fantastic idea for an academic book.
Oh, totally. Well, no. He's an academic, such a great scholar, but it's so practical. It's for pastors. It's for Christian readers. It's like, it's kind of like a way to get into the theology of the New Testament without ever using the word theology. That's fantastic. to really feel the impulses, kind of like what you were drawing out. But yeah, back to your question. Actually, Paul uses that term slightly differently depending on what he's talking about, depending on the context. So, to me, works and works of law in Galatians and Romans means something very specific. And it does not mean the same thing necessarily that it means in Ephesians, because what he's talking about is different. In Galatians and Romans, what's happening there is Paul's trying to correct some misunderstandings that if a person has a Jewish identity, they have some kind of priority in God's work of salvation, or if a person has a Jewish identity, they are actually in, and non-Jews are out. So Gentiles have to become Jewish; they have to Judaize. And how he gets at that is through this expression, works of law. That is, deeds that are done in some kind of observance of the Mosaic law. That mark a person out as being Jewish. So, and it's really important that we understand what Paul says about them. So, a previous generation, and I think a lot of Christian lay people just assume that Paul does demonize works, or he demonizes works of law. Yes. He really, for Paul, works of law are completely neutral. They're just the sort of the pattern of life, that the actions or community dynamics that a person participates in that give them a Jewish identity. Yeah. So we would have works of law as Americans. Yeah. Celebration of July 4th. Someone who says the Pledge of Allegiance. Right. Growing up. Exactly. Someone who pays their taxes by April 15th or submits an extension. Yeah. So they're identity markers. Yeah. They mark out a person's identity, and they mark out group cohesion. Talking about group cohesion, which might be a topic for the future. But anyway, pointing ahead, foreshadowing is what we call it in the biz.
love that. Yes.
So there in Galatians and Romans, Paul doesn't say works of law are bad. He just says that salvation has come by grace through faith for anybody who is of Jewish ethnicity or not. A person is not set right by works of law. That is, whatever your ethnic, if you have an ethnic identity as Jewish, that doesn't mean that you are set right with God. What the proper group that you need to belong to is the group that is in Christ. That is the group that God justifies. So just to say in Galatians and Romans, works and works of law are targeted specifically for the issues that are up and running in those churches.
Because there was debate, right? I mean, there was pressure from some sort of teachers, leaders, for non-Jewish people to put on those markers.
Yes.
Right? For themselves.
Yeah. So in Galatians, there's obviously some Jewish Christian teachers that have come from Jerusalem, not authorized by James, very likely, almost certainly. And they are advocating for Paul's Gentile churches there in Galatia that they need to become Jewish in order to fully participate in God's salvation in Christ. And so Gentiles, non-Jews there in Galatia are considering doing it, which Paul sees as a surrender of the gospel of grace. In Romans, it's hard to, there's no evidence that there were like teachers or that there was a teacher or a Jewish Christian teacher. These very likely were just non-Jewish people who were pretty convinced that they had to sort of take on a mode of life that looked Jewish in order to participate in the salvation offered by the God of Israel, whose Jewish son, was sent to earth to die for his people and the world. There's pressure in Rome and in Galatia to change ethnicity and become Jewish to participate in salvation, to enjoy salvation.
So legalism for Paul wasn't tied to the working out of the Christ gift in terms of changes of life or practices or habits, but the works of law had to do with the temptation to find your identity in Christ through the Jewish pattern of life or the Jewish identity, and that was what brought you into Christ. Am I getting that right?
That's right. And it's all, again, it has a lot to do with belonging and group identity. So there were people in both of those churches that were offering sort of a concrete way of making sure you belong. Here's how you can tell by sort of having the right group identity instead of just having a mode of life shaped by loving your neighbor.
So is it possible to see similar temptations in the church today in the sense of like same legalisms, the idea that I have to take on the identity of a Southern Baptist or I have to take on the identity of, a charismatic or whatever it is? Is there a correspondence between those approaches?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to, you can't be a Democrat and a Christian, or you can't be a Republican and a Christian, or you can't, you have to be this party, or you have to, my goodness, I grew up this way. Those Catholics, they're not Christians. We're the true Christians, or, you can't, Episcopalians aren't Christian, or, Presbyterians maybe. Whatever being Christian is obviously looks like the group that I belong to.
Right.
And what are how is group loyalty demonstrated? All the little ways that we sort of manifest that we're part of the right group. So this is completely up and running today.
Okay.
I think it applies to matters of race and ethnicity. It applies to gender. It applies to so much of the ways that we include and exclude.
Ooh.
Totally. And
because that was the point, right? Some of the Romans who had assumed the Jewish identity were looking down upon and judging the other Roman Christians who had not.
Yep.
So
totally.
this is energized by superiority and exclusion.
Yeah. And that's the boast that's going on in Romans 3, 27 to 31, when Paul talks about boasting is eliminated because of how God sets people right. You can't, there should be no subgroup among Christians that can kind of say, we're part of the right group and you're part of the wrong group.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
On anything other than Jesus.
On anything other than Jesus. And hoping
that's so huge.
Yeah, it's really crazy how slimly Paul portrays being Christian.
Yeah.
Anybody, like 1 Corinthians 12, anybody that calls out, anybody says Jesus is Lord, they're in. It's like, man, that's a big group.
Right.
I want to draw lines that make me comfortable.
Right. Then how would you characterize fruit? If what role would fruit then play in the sense of, John has this passage where, he talks about in 1 John, those who have left from us were never part of us. And I've heard people use that as a way to sort of justify, well, fruit is the way we measure someone who's really in or not. And so they instead of parking the legalism at the front of the conversation about who can be in and who cannot, it's almost on the back end of, well, this person hasn't grown quick enough or demonstrated fruit. Does that question make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, we would say that, or at least I would have articulated that genuine faith does produce change. I mean, you can't get married and not change how you live your life because of the nature of marriage, right? So you can't receive the Christ gift and have that not, as Barclay says, have that not start remaking us. So I'm trying to say, I'm trying to get around the games that people will play and that I've played about measuring fruit as and turning that into an identity sort of scenario. So like, for instance, you've not spoken in tongues or, whatever the back end experience should be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I'm trying to think. I always want to think about whether different biblical authors would answer the question differently, like complementarily, but differently. So John definitely is focused on fruit. And the fruit is loving one another. Like that's it. That's the only fruit is you have my commands. And this is my command, that you love one another.
Got it.
So that's
still slim.
Yes. Yeah. But it's critical. It's the thing.
It is the thing. I mean,
love is all we have left. Love is the reality. Love is the thing. Love is it's the sine qua non. It's the thing without which you're not Christian. So, yeah, for sure.
So I think tribal identities cannot coexist with that sort of love.
Totally. Yeah. Because any other group, especially if you went through all the details of John and the Gospels, there are inevitably disciples that are kind of warring against other groups. Like, hey, Jesus, we're the only group of your followers, right? And he's like, not so fast, boys. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be part of this, bigger than just you all. And so the disciples need to learn that kind of like deference to the reality that Jesus is one big family is bigger than just their subgroup or, just the group of 12 or whatever. And you get all those notes in John, like he has other followers too, or, who are all these other disciples?
Right.
Yeah. But I'm thinking also in Paul, there's, I think you see all this explicitly come out. So in Galatians, for example, he would answer that question. All right, Paul, fine. Then what matters? Okay, if we don't have circumcision, that is Jewish identity. If we don't have circumcision to tell us who's in, who's out, what do we have?
Yes.
And that's when he says neither circumcision nor uncircumcision matters anything. Right. What matters is new creation.
New creation, yes.
Which is kind of like, well, then what does that look like? Because that's still out there. But then he repeats himself and he says, circumcision, uncircumcision don't matter. What matters is faith working through love. So, there again, he sort of sounds like Jesus. So it's like, that faith, I guess you can call that bearing fruit. Because Paul does talk about, and actually in chapter 5, the question about the fruits of the Spirit, I think the question he's answering is, when you look out at a community, how do you know what the animating dynamic is of that community?
That's so good. Yeah.
And what he says, just look at the community. Do you see love, joy, peace, patience, etc.? That's the Spirit at work in that community. When you look at a community and you see factions and rivalries and outbursts of anger and jealousy and all that kind of stuff, that, the animating spiritual dynamic of that community is the power of the flesh. It's that's a community that's captive to the cosmic power of flesh, where sin and death are at work. So those kinds of things are actually really, really important. In fact, I think we fall into this in our modern day. I mean, what have we all been trained to look at churches and know what is safe and unsafe? What's the doctrinal statement?
Right.
Don't worry. And in fact, if they have the right doctrinal statement,
don't worry about,
they could be a bunch of ornery SOBs, but that's fine because they've got good theology. Right. So it's like we're working directly against how Paul would look at a community, which is just terrible. Paul is all about breaking down those tribal tendencies and seeing to it that communities are intentionally formed where difference is highlighted.
Yeah.
But where people act like siblings across the lines of difference.
In Ephesians, we're saved by grace, not through faith, we are saved by grace through faith and not of works. Is he using works in a similar way there?
I think it's different.
Okay.
Because although I'd be very happy to be educated on this, my sense is it's different. Just because there's no obvious Jew-Gentile dynamic going on there. And he wants to also say the same thing these are just Gentile communities. So there's not like that's not the issue that's up and running, or it's not an
but there's
issue
a boast so that no one can boast, he mentioned. So
I think what's going on there, the cadence of that statement is really interesting. I've always wanted to chase this down. I've not seen anybody that's written on this. My brain is turning to mush. There's a song, the cadence of that statement, not from works so that no one can boast. I need to look at the Septuagint of this Psalm. Is that Psalm 100? Where the psalmist says, what does he say? He talks about, we are the sheep of his pasture. We are his people. He made us and not we ourselves. So here's the language. From Psalm 100, worship the Lord with gladness, come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. And there's an alternative reading in the footnote to the NIV, and it says, it is he who made us, and not we ourselves. And what I think is the psalmist is saying there is, this is something Israel would say out loud. We are his people. We're the sheep of his pasture. It is God who constituted and created us. It's not we that created us. Like, how did we get here? Well, we have a story to tell. We were brought up out of slavery in Egypt, and God brought us into the land. And so I think that what's going on in Ephesians 2 is this is the story that the church is supposed to narrate to itself to understand who it is. And what brought this community about? How did it come to be?
I get it.
Here's how it came to be. This is not, I guess we could say it this way. What made God pull the lever of salvation that just brought this resurrection dynamic into the world and created this community out of nothing? What did that? Well, I'll tell you what it wasn't. it wasn't that God was so impressed with who we are and what we've done that he responded and was like, oh, I've got to save these people. It was based on nothing but his grace. He just decided to invade the world and liberate our little nobody community and make us into these heirs of everything. So I think that the works there, I think they're really kind of synonymous with the good deeds. It's like, it's not that God was impressed with what we did and then he brought this thing about, this community that is the embodiment of salvation. God just invaded and recreated us and made us new, and we have an end. Like, there's a point to this. It's for us to walk in these liberating practices so that we can fill our lungs with new creation air.
That's so good.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So Tim, what I guess I'm hearing you say, and this is so good, so interesting to me, is on the one hand, there is a legalism that we are to be afraid of that was sort of embodied in the assumption of Jewish identity markers, and the thought that somehow that identification with Jewish identity markers, brought about justification in Christ. So there's that one, and we see that, as you've said, that dynamic up and running today. But the Ephesians passage is more about how it is, because it's all full of we, right? We were this, now we're this. Because of God's great mercy, he has this. And so the works there isn't the formation of the community. Like, we're not responsible for the formation of this grand community, but this grand community exists so that we might work out God's purposes on earth.
Yeah, it kind of gets at the issue of causation. Like, what? Good. What's the origin of this community? Where do we come from? What's our origin story? And the origin story is God's grace. The origin story is not, we did something impressive. Yeah. We got together as a church and had works of piety that we got his attention and he pulled the lever of salvation or something like that and constituted us as a people. Totally. We are his people. It's he has done this and not us. Yes.
So there's no boasting.
Oh yeah.
The boasting.
Yeah. So the boasting is eliminated. The boasting is slightly different.
Yes. That's where I was going. Yep.
It's not boasting necessarily in one group's identity over another. It's more of human boasting. Like we brought this about.
Like the Tower of Babel versus Pentecost. One is us making a name for ourselves. The other is God kind of coming down almost.
Just invaded out of nowhere. No one expected this.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's totally. So good. Okay. Yeah. That's really helpful. That's really, really helpful. Because I think so this ties into grace, obviously, because grace was always presented as something that almost made us super passive because you never wanted to be tempted into, quote, works. Yeah. And that's not what Paul's setting grace over against at all.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah. Human presumption or just as we tell our story, as we tell our origin story, it's got to be an origin story of God's initiative, his gracious initiative in invading our enslaved reality and giving us life. It's not an origin story of look what we figured out, we as a community or whatever. We rehearse an origin story of helplessness and lostness and distance from God. And the story includes how God, bridged that gap and how he brought us near and liberated us. Well, I mean, that's actually at the beginning of chapter 2. We were dead. Mm-hmm. We were dead. He gave us life.
Yep.
So that's the story as we tell our story as a community.
So here's a dumb question that you're going to object to, even the way I formulate it. But if somebody was in an elevator with you, we get asked this a lot. Why does it need podcasts and PhDs, to talk about what the core message of kind of the gospel is? And if we were in casual conversation, we'd gotten beyond quipping, and I had said, something to you along the lines of, okay, so what does it mean to follow this Jesus and to call yourself a Christian? Is there a way to boil that question down, or an answer down to, 30 seconds or so? I mean, and I know you're going to say, because I've heard you say it in other contexts, no, it takes forever to figure this out. But there has to be one, if you were going to try to arouse curiosity or something to further conversation, is there anything you would say? I know you hate it. He's giving me all these looks that hate this.
This got prompted because we spent 6 episodes on the word saved.
Yeah. Well, to me, man.
That's right.
Yeah. I guess I want to know, where does that question come from? Like, what are the values lying beneath that question? Because I really do see it, like people who ask that, who want some kind of a simplified version. What is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for a sales pitch? Like, why do you want that? Yeah. Like, if you were to boil Yellowstone down to 15 seconds, how would you do it? Rocks and trees and beauty. I don't know. So yeah, if I was to boil it down, God, Jesus loves me. This I know. I don't know. I just don't.
I know.
Yeah, I really don't know about that.
You seemed like in a good mood. I just thought,
I'm in a great mood.
I'd try it.
I'm in a great mood. I just feel like something that is so rich. I want to appreciate the richness of it, and there's something about the gospel preaching in the first part of Acts, anyway. Where Peter and the Jerusalem apostles are preaching the gospel in Jerusalem, and they're actually preaching to people who are expecting something and so there's a well-prepared set of expectations, there's a puzzle with 2 pieces missing.
That's really good.
Peter and John, they come in and like, hey, these are the 2 pieces.
Right.
And so like when Paul and Silas, they go out, they're like, hey, this is how this is done. All right, let's go to Gentile territories. And they arrive and they're like, hey, these are the 2 puzzle pieces. And they're like, that's awesome. Let's fit it into this other puzzle where Zeus and Hermes are the gods.
Yes.
And that's who you guys are, Zeus and Hermes. And so then what Paul starts to do at that point is he starts slowing down, and evangelism takes 2 years. So it's like,
that's so good.
How do you boil something down? Paul didn't. So because if you do boil it down in a consumer culture that we're all completely oriented according to ourselves, and we want fulfillment and contentment and have a happy life. If I say in 15 seconds on an elevator, I say, hey, the answer to all your questions is Jesus.
Right.
And he's like, that's awesome. Because all my questions are, how can I be a millionaire? And how can I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's so I just think that's
so good.
That's really naive to say, well, how do you boil this down? Well, what if it's not boil downable? Why do you want to boil down this multidimensional rich reality that not only that, but the logic of the gospel is so counterintuitive, so that even as you learn so much, this is what I did for years anyway. I fit so much information about the gospel into my inherited grammar of power, of individualism. Yeah. And then I learned that the gospel actually is a different grammar, and you have to learn it. And you don't learn it overnight. You have to kind of plumb its depths a bit. I mean, so at the same time, if I had to say in 15 seconds, maybe I would say I'm crucified with Christ. But I mean, what does any of that mean to anybody?
Well, that just shows the nuance of it, just to throw that word out again.
Yes.
But like just in the example there between the first part of Acts and just the understand the dynamics of both those areas and how to speak to the people with all of the complexities of their life and understanding as part of how you relate to them. And it just shows how important the communal aspect of it is, being willing to invest for like however long it's going to take. And we still try to do that 2 puzzle piece version with everybody.
So good.
As if there's a one size fits all.
Or we do even worse. We do things like making a slave Bible and just being like, the only thing that matters is that we can proclaim salvation for somebody, but we do not want it to mess with our personal dynamics. So we've even changed, like we have history of changing it so much to strip people of humanity within. I say that as like, what is the point of evangelism? What is the point of preaching this? And throughout history, we'll often see that the genesis of that is so misconstrued that it's hard to like, it's almost like you have to take that second to breathe and reassess, why am I sharing this information? Like, what is the point of what I'm articulating? Because I've been taught that, I've been taught many different things. I don't know. But as you were talking about that, I was just thinking of all the histories of how off center we have done this, and what we make, what's the easiest version we can do of it. And then we've also used those easy versions as power plays to people who are marginalized. It's just a wild, it's been a wild trajectory.
Yeah. And also the boiled down version becomes a piece of information in our minds that we run out all these implications of that. And all of those implications are in non-gospel directions,
right?
Which is troubling.
Yeah.
So if I just say it's all about asking Jesus into your heart, well, that it gets so many things wrong, and leads to so many wrong things. I just think that's, also sometimes I think the question implies we know what we're talking about, but we just need a boiled down version of it. And it's like, to become a learner, a disciple, is to embark on a process of learning what this even is. And I just, from my experience, people just don't know what this is. I mean, I'm getting my head around it.
Yeah, and that's how I feel too.
Implications are frightening.
During the apologetics time period of life, whatever that was, early 20s, and going out there and arguing for faith and realizing my lack of knowledge on the complexities of this whole thing came out so quickly. And then you feel like you have to lie to cover. You have to I can't show weakness. I can't show a lack of information on the product that I'm selling. And so it's just, the whole thing just immediately skews off. Yeah. But Mike, you I don't know where we're talking.
So Tim, you can't afford to behave like a Christian because you're trying to make someone else a Christian.
Exactly.
Totally.
We were talking about some topic and it was something about reading the Bible. I can't remember which episode we were on, but you were saying I would start in one of the Gospels and I would ask a question. So let's start at the beginning of Matthew 1. And you started reading and you're like, I would ask, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? And asking questions about understanding kind of the complexity of each thing as we go forward, but then understanding it within the place in which it's written, who it's written to. And I've been using that model now for everything. And I use it in the classroom too for English. I think it's a really important, I think it's a very wise posture to approach anything in conversation, is to ask a bunch of questions and then to listen to each other. And so I've been trying to do that. And I think it's really helpful because I was raised opposite. It was you can go out there with just John 3:16 and know that everybody is despicable and needs saving. And that's all you got. That's all you need. We're just trying to get as many people as possible. That's what the slave Bible thinks. So it's gross for a myriad of reasons, but to say, hey, we just need them to be saved, to accept Jesus, but let's make sure that they stay in the power dynamic that we have set up, because it's ultimately just about a proclamation of salvation. And that's
so good.
Wild.
Yeah, which is a future reality and a heavenly reality and has nothing to do with this world.
That's right. That's right. Or my behavior. Yeah. Because I'm eternal security, baby.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, man, I'm sorry about the 15-second thing. I don't know.
No, I love it.
If I got emails like that, I would just say, I don't know.
Is it a dumb?
Too rich.
Is it a dumb question if it brings about such agitation and great response? I don't think so.
There are no stupid questions, only stupid
I don't
answers.
think so.
Agitation, like a good washcloth.
Yeah. Oh. Oh man. All right. One last question on this, and then thanks so much for your time, man. You're
dude, totally, man.
Champ.
Yeah, I love hanging out with you guys.
Champ. Thank you. Well, it's mutual. There is in at least the circles I was raised in, the idea that this message has to be taught and heard and affirmed, or you cannot go to heaven. So the missionary movement is designed to tell this message to as many people as possible. How do you see? I mean, two parts. How do you see if this is the package, saved, faith, grace, works? How do you see? Because you've hinted at evangelism from a completely different sort of framework, more community-based, less individual sort of based or whatever. But then how about people who've just never heard that and affirm that message? So they live in sub-Saharan Africa or in India, and they have never heard this whole spiel. How do you think Paul sees those kinds of people?
Well, first, I don't. I do want to raise a lot of questions about our assumptions about evangelism, but I don't know. I don't know that I would argue for a community-based evangelistic thrust. I think one of the things that's very, very interesting in all of the New Testament letters, there are no exhortations to evangelize. So I'm not sure. I think
I meant community, like the community proclaims the Lord death until he comes. So that So it's not it's the existence of a certain kind of community that proclaims God's death.
And
that's what I meant by community.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's right. So when the community eats the meal is the proclamation.
Right.
So the corporate practice of hospitality and unity, which Galatians and Romans are both trying to overcome the disunity, when the community embraces practices of unity, that's what the death of Christ looks like. Like the death of Christ produces that reality. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. God, what was your question?
About
what about those people that have never heard? I don't know. What about them?
Yeah, I mean the idea behind that view of evangelism was if they don't hear, they don't go. In fact, I was even exposed in graduate school to a view that said those people that don't hear the gospel were the people that never would have responded anyway.
Oh yeah.
So this was a Molinistic sort of view.
Yeah, what's kind of wild is
excuse me.
I don't really think that there is there's not a lot going on in the New Testament that really addresses that question. And there's not a lot in the New Testament that generates that question as important. Do you know what I'm saying?
I smell what you're cooking, my friend.
Well, no. I think that's an interesting observation.
No, I think
and so
it
it's
is.
Like I think we talk about that question. I suspect we talk about it because our theology begins with hell. It does not begin with God or Jesus or salvation or the cross or anything. I mean, we start with hell, and then now we're Americans. What's the most efficient way to get a lot of people out of that destination? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then the question is raised, well, what about people who never hear this message?
Right. Exactly.
I guess I want a different starting point. I start with Jesus and start with the God of Israel and the Creator God, and also in Scripture. This is in the Old Testament, and it's also a dominant note in Matthew. It's a massive note in Mark. It's pretty important for Paul and Hebrews and Revelation, and James and John and Peter. Yeah. So all the New Testament writers. I'm just trying to think of passages. Is that the people who are in the most precarious positions are those who have heard. Yes. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like we're asking the wrong question.
Oh, it's so good.
God, when Christians look out on the world, we should imagine people as objects of God's intense love and care, and God's grief that there are lives of pain in this world. And when we think about ourselves as the church, and this is not my own personal identity, but when we consider ourselves, I think we need to consider ourselves as people called to bring relief and care into the world and genuine humanity. And if we are at all furthering destruction and anger and oppression and division, we need to know that God is suiting up in armor to come and judge us. Because that's Isaiah 59. I mean, God puts on his armor to come against his people because his people have become a people of injustice. So, what about those who have never heard? They're the objects of God's love. I mean, what is God going to do in the end, or what happens? I don't know. He's 1,000 times, infinitely better and more loving than I am. So it's probably I just don't know. But warnings about judgment are almost always directed at God's people. Yeah. So we're the ones we have a question mark over us. Other people don't have question marks over them.
Love it, dude. Well, listen, Tim, we're so grateful for you, our audience.
Hey, you are welcome. Anytime. I'm always honored anytime I get to hang out with you guys.
Appreciate that.
Talk to other humans and not felines. Although they're not so bad.
Just a polar bear and a wolverine.
That's right.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. Voxology is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is supported by listeners just like yourself. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Voxology. You can also join the community and hang out and chat with us on the socials. Facebook.com/Voxology Podcast and on Instagram @Voxology. Thank you for walking the long road with us.